Hi everyone. In last sessions, what we discussed? We discussed about of the Route 53 services and what is the use of the Route 53 services. So it is nothing but we can say called as suppose we have the one domain name for our application. I want to map that domain name to the my application. Then we have to use the Route 53 services. Then today we will discuss about of the VPC, which is a very important, and we can say called as a this is our last cloud computing of the services. Then we will start our Terraform. Okay. So we will discuss about the Terraform and what are the use and how to use in the real time of the Terraform. So we will discuss once we completed the VPC. This is our last service VPC. So what is the use of the VPC and what is the VPC stands for the virtual private cloud. So whenever we search here the VPC, so you can see here so we have the top features here. Your VPC subnet route table internet gateway and agrees only the internet gateway. So you can see here the VPC is nothing but we can say called as the virtual private cloud, and we can say called as the isolated cloud resources. Isolated is nothing but we can say called as a so suppose we have the one application, otherwise we are running one company at that time. So we have the we require the one isolated network, so no one can enter in my network. Suppose we are running one IT company, otherwise we can say call as a we want to deploy the one application. At that time, we require the one isolated network. Suppose if this is my we can say call as the application. In that application, everyone can access my application if we are not using of the isolated, if we are not using of the VPC. Because suppose we have the number of peoples in the market and everyone can access our application and everyone can changes in anything in that application. So mm, that's why we have to use the VPC. VPC is nothing but virtual private cloud, so no one can access without my permission, so no one can access my network. Because if you want to deploy an application, then just we have to access that application of the endpoint URL to the everyone, because we are allowing, so we will decide it whatever we have the what kind of the data everyone can access or not. So that's why we have to use the VPC. So VPC provides the virtual network environment for the AWS cloud resources. Suppose everyone knows what is the AWS. AWS is a nothing but it is a cloud platform. So everyone can access our AWS account. Suppose we have the Wipro company, Infosys company. At that time, everyone, each and every IT companies are using something cloud platform. It's like GCP, then Azure, then AWS. Then if we don't have any private network, then what will be happen? Everyone can access my network and everyone can we can suppose as a misuse our application of the network. So that's why we have to provide the private private network for the my AWS cloud resources. Suppose I want to create a one VM. Otherwise, I want to create a suppose we are going to the EC2 instances. So whenever we are going to the EC2 instances, at that time while we creating of the EC2 instances here, you can see here the we have the one VPC. What is the VPC? So while we creating of the VPC here, you can see here the network setting. In that network setting, we can see called as a security group, but this is the our security related. But here we have to decide it what kind of the VPC, what kind of the firewalls we need to use it in our resources, because we are creating up the some resources in our AWS. Suppose I want to create a one EC2 instance, then we have to enter the test. Suppose I am entering here the test, then we have to choose here the what kind of the machines I want to use it here. Then after that I want to use here the different type of the instances here. Then we need to select it here, keep here. Once we selected the key pair here, you can see here the we have the network settings here. In that network settings, you can see here the we already we have the different kind of the networks, because while we creating of the EC2 instances, we have already default network for the beginners. For while we doing the practices first time, we don't know what is the VPC, and VPC is required for every EC2 instances. So that's why we can use of the default VPC at that time. I want to use it default VPC. You can see here that do have any default VPC? No, we don't have any default VPC, because I think I have deleted the default VPC in this location. Suppose I'm selecting here the Toku data centers, then what will be happen here? While I'm creating of the EC2 instances, you can see here the for beginners we have the one default VPC. So what is the default VPC? Which is provided from the AWS side. Then for at that, suppose I want to explore the AWS account, then I want to create one EC2 instances. Then what will be happen? We have to create the key pair for the login, and for the beginners, for the encourage of the beginners, they are providing of the by default VPC, which is created from the AWS side. So that's why we are selecting here the default VPC. But whenever we selected the default VPC, at that time everyone can access my VPC. So sorry, not VPC, everyone can access my machine. So I don't want to access anyone my machine without my permission. So that's why we have to go with VPC. VPC is nothing but it's a virtual private cloud, we can say call, and we can say call as a it's a isolated cloud resources. A VPC allows to user to create and manage their own isolated virtual network within the cloud. Suppose I want to create a different resources. At that time we have to select the VPC, then we have to create a own our network, and we have to manage it itself. Otherwise, if we are not creating of any isolated network, then what will be happen? At that time everyone can access our network. So that's why, suppose uh, whenever we take example of I want to purchase one vehicle, then what will be happen? So we have to register first that vehicle, whenever we buying of the vehicle. At that time, once we registered that vehicle, then we can use it. Otherwise, otherwise we can say call it anyone can use our. So we can say call it this is my private assets, private whatever we have. No one can access mine without my permission. So that's why we can say, whenever we take example of the simple example, so in that resources, AWS resources, I want to create a different resources as per my requirement, right? As per my project requirement, then what we have to do here, we have to create the one VPC. What is the VPC? VPC is nothing but we have to develop one private network. Without our permissions, no one can access my these cloud resources, whatever we want to create in our application. Then after that, we can say call as a VPC provide the flexible, secure network, uh, secure network environment to manage our resources in AWS. So whatever we have the resources, so we have to secure network that one, and once we secure it, then we can use our resources. Suppose if we don't have any security, then what will be use of that one? So because if we are not securing the our network, then everyone can access our network, and everyone can changes our network as per their requirement wise. But without my permission, I don't want to change anything in my network. I don't want to access to anyone in our AWS cloud. So that's why we have to provide the one VPC. Then we have the different types of the terminologies in the VPC. So whenever we're talking about of the VPC, so we can say call as a we have the different VPC terminology. So whenever we're talking about of the different VPC here, you can see here the so we have the like we have the isolated network. So whenever we're talking about of the any of the VPC terminologies here, you can see. So just I copied here. I will each and every point uh, will be provided in the notes. Okay, so don't worry. After that, we have the I think one we need to do one added here. Let me add one line here. That is called as a we need to add here the NACL. So this is we can call as a network access control list. These are the VPC terminologies. We can call as it is an isolated network, then CIDR blocks, then subnet, then route tables, then internet gateway, NAT gateway, VPC pairing, and security group. So these are the VPC terminologies. Suppose whenever we have the one with network here, so you can consider this is my one VPC. So whenever we creating of the one diagram here, so we can call it this is my VPC, virtual private cloud here. In that virtual private cloud, we have the different terminologies like subnet. So what is the subnet? Subnet is nothing but this is my big network. So what is the VPC? VPC is nothing but it's a main network. In that we have the different subnets here. Suppose we have the another subnet. This is the we can say call it the we need to the divide VPC in the different small group. So we can say call it the this is my subnet. So we have the VPC. In that VPC we need to the divide the VPC in the different small group. That time we can say call it the it is a subnet. Okay. After that, we can say call as a what is the route table. So we will discuss it one by one here. First, what is the isolated network? Isolated network is nothing but we created one VPC. Then after that, we have the CIDR block. So what is the purpose of the CIDR block? CIDR block is nothing but we can say called as a whatever we suppose I want to require the I want to decide the VPC sizing. Then what we have to do here? So we have to class class what is the full form of the CIDR block here? So classless inter-domain routing. So this is our CIDR block. So define the IP addresses. So whatever we want to range it. Suppose while we already we discussed it, we have the two types of the IPs. One is a IP4 and IP6. Then I want to decide range for my IP. So which IP, how many IPs we require for the our VPC. Then who will be decided? It will be decided from the CIDR block. So after that, you can see here the CIDR block, then subnets. What is the subnet? Subnet is nothing but VPC is a big network. A VPC divided into the multiple smallest network that's called as a subnets. So we have VPC is a big network. So we have the this is the mainframe. In that mainframe, I want to divide in the small group of the network. Then what we have to do here? We have to go with subnets. You can see here the while we are launching of the EC2 instances, while we are launching of the one VM machines here, you can see here the once we selected of the VPC by default. 1 minute. You can see here the so this is my network. Then we selected the default network here. Then we have the subnet. So subnet is nothing but right now we are selecting here the default subnet in any availability of the zone because we are not deciding because we are not creating any not created any private network, so that's why we have to we don't have any subnets here, so which is already provided from the AWS side. We are using of that private uh, network here that is called as a by default network. So we can say what is the subnet. Subnet is nothing but multiple smaller network. VPC is divided into the smaller network that is called as a subnet. So we have the two types of the subnet. One is whenever we selected here, whenever we created own VPC, at that time we have the two types of the subnet. So we need to the select it as per our requirement wise. So in that subnet we can say called as a two types of the subnet. One is a public subnet and another is a private subnet. So what is the purpose of the public subnet? Public subnet is nothing but connected to internet via internet gateway. Suppose what is the public subnet? Suppose I want to connect with my internet gateway. Suppose this is my subnet. Okay, so I want to, you can take example here. So we have the, this is a VPC. In that VPC we divided the VPC into the smaller subnet. So we have the two, right now I require the two subnets. Okay, so you can, as per your requirement wise, you can select it the many subnets. Okay, after that I want to connect this subnet to the internet. So then what we have to do here, so we, so internet is nothing but, so it's a public subnet. So we need to, once we decided this is my public subnet, so we have to allow the incoming traffic and outgoing traffic also in our this subnet. But whenever we're talking about of the private net, private subnet here, so we can say this is my private subnet. So what is the purpose of the private subnet? In that subnet, we are allowing to the internet, are we going to allow this private subnet to the access to the internet? No, we are not going to allow here this private subnet. No one can access via internet, because this subnet I want to use for the my own privacy. So that's why we can say call as the, this is the private subnet. And this is the, whenever we're talking about of the public subnet, so anyone can access my uh, anyone can access my subnet, because I want to connect this public subnet to the internet. So that time we have to allow the incoming traffic as well as outgoing traffic, because incoming traffic is nothing but we are getting some request from the internet side, and whatever, if it is valid, then we have to provide this request as a response to the user, that is called as a, we can say called as a outgoing traffic. So we have the two types of the subnet. One is a public subnet, another is a private subnet. What is the purpose of the private subnet? Private subnet is nothing but, so whatever we have the requirement for the private, for own privacy, we have to use a private subnet. And what is the public subnet? Public subnet is nothing but any, we have to allow to the incoming traffic as well as outgoing traffic. And what we have to use it here, so we have to use the here the internet gateway. So do we need to the internet gateway here? No, we don't require the internet gateway, because no one, we don't have any internet access for the private subnet. So it is used for the internal resources. Suppose we have the another subnet here, so we can take example of the here. So this is my private, so this is my public, this is the private. So I want to internet internal communication subnet to subnet. Then what we have to do here, we have to use here the private subnet, because we don't have any internet access for the, we don't require any internet access for this private subnet. So that's why we have to use the private subnet here. Then after that, uh, let me check which terminology here. So it's a route table. So what is the purpose of the route table? Route table is nothing but it will be decide the, uh, it will be define the how traffic is routed with our VPC. Suppose what is the traffic? Traffic is nothing but, so we have to decide. So traffic is nothing but we have the incoming traffic or outgoing traffic. What is the traffic? Traffic is nothing but user. How many user, whatever. Suppose whenever we are accessing of the Flipkart application, while whenever we accessing of the Flipkart application, at that time we are a user. Then we are accessing our application by using of the internet. Without internet, can we access our Flipkart application? No, we cannot access it, because it's a WebEx application. Suppose if it is a desktop application, and it's a, at that time, suppose I want to use a VLC media, I want to use the pen. At that time, do we require the any internet? No, we don't require any internet, because so it's a developed for the our internal purpose, and it's a privacy on our notepad and whatever uh, paint. These are the desktop application, and we are using of this application for our own purpose. So at that time, do we require any internet? No, we don't require any internet. So that is, we can suppose as a, we have the different kind of the applications in the market. One is a WebEx application, another is a desktop application. Then based on the our requirement, we have to decide it, do we require the traffic for this application, or we don't require any traffic application, we don't any do we need to any another uh, internet for this application. So we have to decide it. So that time we can say go to the, what is the route table? Route table is nothing but how traffic is routed with VPC. So suppose this is my user. So user are accessing my application. Then who will be decided? It will be decided the route table. So here we have the one route table. By using of the route table, so then by using of the route table, so this route table will be decided, so how traffic routed in this VPC, in this our application. So at that time we can say called as a, it define the how traffic is routed with in VPC. Because we are not suppose we are not using of the I don't want to use the route table, then do we need to any use here? No. Every subnet, we can say called as a, every subnet we require the one route table, because it will be decide the how traffic will be routed in our VPC. Each subnet is associated with a route table. Suppose here also we have the associated one route table here. Here we have the one associated route table here. Because if we don't have any I don't want to require this route table, then we cannot use it for the, because I want to use for the private subnet. At that time you cannot use, we can say call it a, I cannot use it because I want to use for the private subnet, then that is the fine. But here also this route table will be decided how traffic will be routed in our VPC. Suppose we, whenever we using of the private subnet, at that time we can say call as a, I'm using for the this subnet for the private. Then what is the purpose of the private subnet? So it will be internal communication. Then who will be decided? It will be decided from the route table. So route table is nothing but, so how traffic will be routed in our VPC. Who will be decided? It will be decided from the route table. After that, what is the internet gateway? Internet gateway, already here we discussed some parts. So internet gateway is nothing but it is allowed to the resources to connect with our internet. Otherwise, in AWS account, so what kind of the resources we have? So we have the one EC2 instances. This EC2 instances, I want to connect with my internet. Then what we have to do here? Suppose already we discussed uh, this EC2 instances. We are connected. We generated. No, sorry, we are created one EC2 instances. Once we created EC2 instances, then we are connecting our EC2 instances by using of the git bash. Once we connected with git bash, then we can ping by using of the ping command. We can ping whatever we want to. Suppose I want to ping the www.google.com, then we can ping it, because we have the internet access in these EC2 instances. Because without internet, can we access our www.google.com? No, we cannot access it, because every WebEx application we require the internet. Without internet, can we access it? No, we cannot access it. For every VPC, one internet gateway is required. Because if we suppose I don't have any suppose I'm considering here I don't want to use the any internet gateway, then what will be happen here? Then how we can communicate this subnet with our internet? This is the main question for us, because whenever we are using of the any subnet, we require uh, every subnet. access every we need to allow the every resources to access to the internet because we require something. So as per our requirement wise, so we require the one internet gateway in our VPC. Then after that, what will be happen for others? So we are not allowing in other subnet. So you can say this is my private subnet. But if we are attach the internet gateway to subnet, then that called as a public subnet. Already we discussed here. If we I don't want to use this public subnet, then what will be use of this one? Because there is no use of the we don't have any public subnet, there is no use of the VPC. So we have to how we can communicate this subnet with our internet, so that is the main question. So that's why every subnet every VPC we need to the attach one internet gateway for the one subnet. If it is fine, if we have the one internet gateway, if if we have the one internet gateway, that is the fine. So I want to communicate this subnet to the internet, then what we have to do here, we have to use the another technique. So we will discuss it here. And we will create a one lab task also here. For the VPC, we will create one public subnet, we will create one private subnet, and then how to communicate with internally also. So and at that time I want once we created the public subnet, that is the fine. Once we created the public subnet, then we can easily uh, connect with our internet. We can say call as a this is our public subnet. But once we created the private subnet, then I don't want to allow anyone here from the internet side. But for my requirement is here, I want to access from my end side. We can say call it from my end side, I want to access to the internet for the different suppose I want to access my database. Okay, so that time we can so called as a I want to allow outbound rule here. I want to allow the outbound rule here, but I don't want to any inbound rule here. Then what we have to do here, I'm not allowing to any inbound rule here, but I'm allowing to the outbound rule with our internet. Then what we have to do here, so we have to use the NAT gateway. NAT gateway is nothing but NAT gateway enable the outbound internet access for the private subnet. Because that is the fine, we are not allowing of the any incoming in this private subnet. But for my requirement, every time we need to the access to the internet. So I want to allow outbound rule here, outbound rule here to the I want to allow the outbound internet access for my private subnet. Then what we have to do here, we have to create a one NAT gateway. NAT gateway we should create in public subnet. Okay, and we will attach that NAT gateway to the private subnet. So I think it's a difficult to create a NAT gateway. So we will cover each and every point for the lab task. So where we have to create the NAT gateway, we have to create the NAT gateway in our public subnet. Then suppose we can suppose we created one NAT gateway here. Already we installed the one EC2 machines here. Once we created the EC2 machines here, then we can say called as this is my public subnet. We are allowing to the incoming traffic as well as we are allowing to the outgoing traffic also here. Because by default, whenever we are allowed to the incoming, it will be default for the outbound rule. Because whatever we are incoming from the user side, then we have to provide the response to the users. That's why we have to allow to the outbound rule. But whenever we created the private subnet here, we are not allowing any internet from the internet side in my private subnet. But I want to access my private subnet in the internet. Then what we have to do here, we have to use the NAT gateway. But where we will create the NAT gateway? So we will create the NAT gateway in the public subnet. Then we have to, once we created the NAT gateway in the public subnet, then we have to attach this NAT gateway to the our private subnet. Then we can um, access our internet. Otherwise, we cannot access our internet. Suppose I want to ping the www.google.com. Then what will be happen here? Otherwise, we can say I want to connect with my EC2 instance. Then what will be happen? If we are not allowing to the any outbound rule, then what will be happen? We are not connected. Then we will get the timeout error there. So we will discuss one by one here. But while we creating of the lab testers here, first what we have to do here? First we have to create the 1 minute here. Okay. After that, once we created the NAT gateway, we have the VPC pairing. What is the VPC pairing? VPC pairing is nothing but I want to communicate with my internally subnet. Then what we have to do here? So we can call it is a VPC pairing. So I want to internal communication between the two subnet. Then what we can say, it is a, we can call it a VPC pairing. After that VPC pairing, already we discussed the VPC group. Sorry, security group. What is the purpose of the security group? Security group acts as a firewall to secure our resources. Because if we don't have any security for whatever we created the resources, then what is the use of the cloud computing? So that's why we have to use the security group which is provided from the AWS side. And at that time, security group contain inbound rule and outbound rule. Who will be decide how we can decide it the security group? Because in the security group we have the two rules. One is the inbound rule, another is the outbound rule. Because if we are connecting with our internet, and if we are allowing users in our resources, then what we can say called as a, so we will decide it in inbound rule and outbound rule. Suppose we don't have any inbound rule and outbound rule, then do we require the security group? No. We can say call it's a private. But there is a no user, because how we can communicate to the internet? Without internet, can we create each and everything? No, we cannot create it, because uh, every subnet, every VPC, we require the one internet gateway. Because if we don't have any internet gateway, then how we can say called as a we are allowing the incoming traffic, and we are providing the correct response to the user. So that's why we require the one internet gateway. After that, in one security group, we can add the 15 rules. Suppose we created the one security group here. You can see here the we have the security group. In that security group, it will be acts as a firewall. In that, if you want to create it, then you can create it. Otherwise, you can select it the existing security group. You can see here the we have the default VPC which is provided from the AWS side. In that VPC, we require the firewall, we require the security group. Then who will be decided? It will we already create. We are using here default network here. So that's why which is provided from the default security group from the AWS side. So that's why we required very important. We can say call it a security group. Without security group, do we can say call it a our whatever we created the resources are secure? No, we can say called as a, at that time our uh, resources are not secured. Then security group support only allow rules. By default, allow rules are the denied here. Suppose if we created here one security group here, is if we selected here, then you can see here the 1 minute here. So I need to select here the one key pair here. I think I don't have any. data folder. Okay, we will cover up that one, because once we selected here the security group, by default it will be by default all rules are the denied, but we need to the allow for all rules, because we need to the allow to the incoming traffic and outgoing traffic. So we cannot configure the deny rule in the security group, because don't accept any request from the particular that IP. Suppose we have the particular IP, then I don't want to accept that request, uh, whatever we are providing the IPs. So we can say call it the security group, and security groups are applicable at a resource level. Suppose if we have the one resource level, then we can. But if we created the one security group, we can add the 15 rules here. But if we created the security group in the Tokyo region, and at that time I want to that Tokyo region security group, I want to use it in another region, no, at that time we cannot allow it. Then multiple security group can attach in the single instances. Suppose we have the multiple security group, then we can attach that single resources, and one instances we one instance can have the 5 security group, because here you can see the one security group here. I want to suppose I want to create a, you can see here the by default. If you want to create the new one, then you can create it. Otherwise, if you want to create it here, you can see here the allow ss traffic here. Otherwise, if we are not suppose I don't want to allow into the ss traffic, then you can select it the unticked here. I want to select it here, here, then you can. If we are allowing the HTTPS traffic from the internet, then we can allow it. Otherwise, if we are not selected here, then it won't be allow. Whatever we have the requested from the internet side, it won't be allowed. That is called as a firewall security group. Security group acts as a first level uh, defense for the outgoing the traffic, because we are deciding the firewall. Firewall is nothing but, so we will rule here. We have the one rule here. You can see here the a security group is a set of the firewall rules that control the traffic for your instances, not other instances. Then add rules for the allow to the specific traffic to reach your instances. Because if we don't have any security group, then what is the use of this cloud computing? So that's why we have the private cloud network. Okay, that is called the isolated network, we can say called it. Then if I want to use the firewall, so what is the use of the firewall? So it will be decided the security. So whatever we have the resources which is created from our side in the AWS side for our project, then we have to decide a firewall, otherwise we can say call it a security group. So it will be more secure our resources. Otherwise we can say call it a our resources are not secured. Okay, but in that security group contain inbound rule as well as outbound rule. Without inbound rule, outbound rule, we cannot say called as a it's a security group, because we are allowing to the users, and whatever we have the valid requested, then we have to provide the valid response to the our user. So that's why it will be contain the inbound rule and outbound rules. After that, what is the next terminology here? So NACL. What is the NACL? NACL stand for the Network Access Control List. So NACL acts as a firewall for the our subnets in the VPC. So we have the different subnets here. In that, I want I want one firewall for my subnet. Then we have to select it here the NACL. NACL applicable at the subnet level only, because it is a firewall for the only subnet. It is not firewall for our overall VPC. So overall our resources, because we have to decide it, we have to provide the one NACL. NACL stands for the Network Access Control List. NACL acts as a firewall for our subnets in the VPC. Then NACL applicable at a subnet level. Then NACL rules are the applicable for all resources which are part of the subnet, because we can whatever we have the different configurations, then we have to decide it, because if we have the suppose whenever we take example here, uh, I want to block for the particular of the already we discussed here in the security group, we have to decide it, um, our whatever we have the resources are secure or not. So that's why we have to use the security group. Then in that we have the different inbound rules and outbound rule, and at that time I want to block that particular IP. Then what will be happen here? So we cannot block it, because this is our resources security group. But we have the one subnet firewall here. In that subnet firewall, we can block the particular of the IPs. I do, because I don't want to connect to my EC2 instances. Then what we have to do here? So we can block that EC2 instance IP addresses. So because this is the subnet level firewall. So one subnet can have only one NACL, because we have the one number of subnets here. In that number of subnets, so we have the one firewall here. We have the one firewall here. We have the one firewall here, because it's a first level of the we can say call it the we suppose my traffic will be incoming and my traffic will be outgoing. So whatever we have the requested from the user side, then we have to provide the response from our side, because at that time what suppose we don't whenever we are getting the one incoming traffic at that time, so we have to decide it, because suppose I'm trying to this is my application you can see here, and I'm trying to by intentionally break this application. I'm trying to hack this application. So then what we have to do here? So because we have the very less security in this particular of the application, then we can easily access it whatever we want to in that application. But we have the internet gate, we have the one subnet firewall here, then it will be decided. So we can suppose the first level of the defense for my incoming traffic in our first subnet. So this is my public subnet. In that public subnet, so we require one NACL. NACL is nothing but network access control list. So NACL acts as the first level of the defense for the incoming traffic, because suppose some users are genuine, some users are not genuine. At that time what we have to what we can say here, some users whatever we have the genuine users, they just want to use our application for the uh, particular suppose we have the Flipkart application, then what is the use of the Flipkart application? So we can buy the whatever we required it as per our requirement wise we can buy. But some other peoples are trying to enter in our application whatever they want to it, then they are trying to hack our application. Then so we can suppose as a no one can access. So we can suppose as a I want to first defense incoming traffic for this subnet. Then what we have to do here, we have to use it here NACL. NACL stands for the network access control list. So for the first subnet, we have the one defense incoming traffic here. We don't have any defense for the incoming traffic. Then what will be happen here? So maybe our application will be hacked, our resources will be hacked here, and everyone can use of the misuse of the our application resources. So that's why we can say call as a we require the one NACL, which is we can say call as a it is a firewall for the only subnet. And what is the security group? It is a firewall for our resources. So what is the resources? Whenever we creating EC2 instances, this is my one resources. Then we have to decide a security group there. So once we created the suppose once we created the one VPC, in that we require the different subnet. Then I want to firewall for this subnet. Then what we have to do here? We have to add the NACL. Then we can say call it is a first defense for the incoming traffic. So we can say call as a NACL. So what we discussed here? So we discussed here different terminologies in our AWS, not AWS, in our VPC terminology. These are the VPC terminology: isolated network, CIDR block. CIDR block. What is the CIDR block? CIDR blocks is nothing but it will be decided how many IPs we require for that particular of the IPs. Suppose so whenever we're talking about of the suppose whenever we created here, I will show you here. Suppose we have the one VPC here. In that VPC, what we discuss here, subnet here, your VPC. Then once we navigated to the your VPC here, this is my default VPC, which is provided from the AWS side. You can see here the by default VPC. Okay. After that, we discussed here. We discuss what we discussed here. We have the different subnet here because we have the one default VPC. Then we have the three of them uh, default subnets. You can see here the it will be available for the 1A, 1B, 1C here. You can see here the all are the available subnet IDs here. So we can say call as all are available for my default VPC. That default VPC we have the three subnets here. After that we have the route table here. In that route table we have the already we discussed here every subnet we require the one route table. So that's why it is already created default VPC, and it is already created the default subnet. Then it is already created the route table from the AWS side. Then internet gateway also is attached here because we already created the one default VPC. So that's why we have the internet gateway. After that, egress uh, only internet gateway. So then carrier gateway. So we don't require any of them here. Then after that we require only NAT gateway. So what is the NAT gateway? NAT gateway is nothing but I want to communicate with my already we discussed VPC pairing. I want to communicate with my internal subnet. Then what we have to do here? So not VPC pairing. VPC pairing is nothing but I want to internal communication between the two VPC, not two VPC, two subnet. Then what we have to do here? We have to use the VPC pairing. But what is the use of the NAT gateway? NAT gateway is nothing but I want to uh, communicate with my internet. Then what we have to do here? So we have to use the NAT gateway. So we have the private subnet. For that private subnet, I require the internet access. So what we have to do here? So we have to use the NAT gateway. Then peering connection. Peering connection is nothing but so I want to internal communication between the two subnets. Then what we have to do here? So use for the we have to use for the VPC pairing. So whenever we creating the your VPC here, you can see here the resources create. Then after that we have the one CIDR block. What is the CIDR? CIDR is nothing but so this is my IP4 here. So already we know that IP4 is nothing but it will be anything here. If you want to enter like this 10.0.d 10.0.0.0, but whenever we using of the IP4 cider block here, then I am creating of the one private subnet here. Okay, then here you can see the IP4 for the cider manually. If you want to cider for the allocated automatically here, then you can use it. Here you can see the 10.0.0 dot slash, otherwise we can suppose divide by 24. So if we are divided by 24, then what is the meaning of this one? So we can suppose as a 2 to the power. So if we have like this here 10 dot 10 dot okay, 1 10 dot 10 dot, then divide by 24. Otherwise you can see here the 16 also here, 16 also here, 28 also is there, and 24 also is there. But what is the meaning of this divide by 24? So I want to decide the how many IPs we require. So the process of the deciding of the number of IPs required for the VPC, then who will be decided? It will be decided for the cider block. So we can call as the AWS allow the VPC cider block between the divide by 16 and 28. But cider block is nothing but classless inter-domain routing. Then cider block define the IP addresses range for the our VPC. Then it will be decide for the range for my particular the VPC. But when what is the meaning of the 24 here? 24 is nothing but we can say call it, this is my how many IPs we require for the our VPC. Then we can say call it who will be decided. It will be decided for the from the cider block side. Then 2 to the power, then we can say call it 32 bit. Okay, then minus 24, because we divided here the 24 here, 2 to the power 32 minus 24 here. So whenever we are saying here like this 24 here, then what will be here? It will be 2 to the power here, so 8. So what will be the output here? So it will be 256. Then we can call as a for that particular the IPs, whenever we divide by the 24 here, so we can use 256 IPs for my VPC. Then we can call as a VPC of the sizing. Suppose we have the suppose we have the this is our one. Okay, but I want to use like this here. Suppose if we have the no one can using like this, so I want to use for the 1 minute here something. Okay, so like this 10 power 10 dot 10 dot 0. Okay, then after that 16. What is the use? Suppose how many? So whenever we saying like this, okay, okay, then what we can say called as a 2 to the power 2 to the power, then 32 minus 16. Then what will be here? 2 to the power 16. So then what will be the output here? 65 uh, 536. These are the IPs. So here whenever we divide by 24 here, then my VPC sizing is a 50 25 256. Then I can use 256 for the my whenever we created here the why whenever we created the one VPC here, in that one VPC, then I want to use 256 IPs for this first subnet. Then you can use it like this one. So we have to enter like this, but I want to use like this. uh, I don't want to 256 for my first subnet. I want to divide some 200 IPs used for this VPC, because we are deciding how many IPs we required for the VPC. But whenever we created divide by 16, then for one VPC we can create the 65,536 IPs we can create it for my one VPC, because as per my requirement wise we can increase our VPC. We don't have any scalable here. So suppose right now today I'm using of the 256 IPs. Once we it is use it for the 256, at that time I want to use another 256 IPs for my VPC. Then what we have to do here, then we can say called as a we need to create another subnet, and we need to add the 256 IPs in that, because we don't have any scalable here. We cannot scale your IP addresses. So as per your requirement wise, you can use it for the suppose we have the 65,000. I want to use for the 65,536. Then how is it possible? Maybe sometimes we require, but it depends on your project. If we have the large enterprise application, then we can suppose we can use it for the 65,536. But we cannot predict today I want to use these numbers of the IPs required for my application, so we cannot predict today, because it we can suppose we cannot say whatever we have the one VPC. In that VPC we can create a max IPs 65,536. More than the IPs we cannot create it in that. Okay, so I want to decide it how many IP we require. Then what we have to do here, so 10 dot 10 dot divided by 24, 2 to the power 32 minus 24. Suppose if we are saying like this here, suppose we can say call it a, so 32. Then what we can say call is a 2 to the power 32 minus 32. Then 2 to the power, what will be output here, 2 to the power 0. Then what will be the output here, so it will be 1. Then we can say call as a, I want only one IP is required. So who will be decided VPC sizing? It will be decided from the CIDR block. You can see here the so CIDR block size must be between the slash, that is called as a divide by 16 and divide by 28. Once we enter it, then a maximum how many IPs we can use it for the one VPC. We can use for the one VPC 65,536. But as per your requirement wise, you can use it and you can decide it like this: 2 to the power 32 bit minus whatever we have. I want to use for the 32, 31, 30, 29. It's depend on you. Then how many IPs we can create it for the, but whenever we created, suppose we whenever we divide by 26 or 16 or 28 here, suppose I have entered here the 26. 1 minute, I think something is here. Okay, I'm creating one IPs here, sorry, 10.10.0 divided by sorry 16. Okay, Then once we divide by 16, then how many IPs we can generate here? 65,536 IPs we can use it for one VPC. But for every, then how many IPs are we going to use right now? Um, we can say call as we are not going to the 65,000, because as per your requirement wise, we can say call as we will take that particular of the IPs here. Suppose we have the one VPC here. In that VPC, we have the two subnets here. In that two subnets here, uh, I required only for the 256 IPs. Then we can say call the 256 IPs for my first subnet, and 256 IPs for my another subnet. Then for once we required in the future, then we can increase it. We need to the create another subnet, and we need to the add the IPs in that, because we can say called as a we don't have any scalable subnets here. So we need to the add the new subnet. So it's a we can say called as per your requirement wise you can decide it. But for future references, so it will be 65,536 IPs available in our one VPC. Then that is called as a we can call as a it is a VPC sizing. Then who will be decided? It will be decided from the CIDR block. So what is the stands for the CIDR block here? So we can call it as a classless interdomain routing. Okay. So we can call it as a VPC only, VPC and more here. If you want to, you can create it. Okay. I think that's it for